You're listening to the Three Ropes Podcast with Scott Fineout. On the HTW Network.
Ian Daddybones.
Scott Fineout.
How you doing, man?
I am great. How are you?
Good. You know, it took a little bit of time to get this conversation underway, but
Yes.
you know,
You want to tell that story real quick?
well, you know, it's a recurring theme. The internet is really, really terrible at my house.
It's kind of crazy because we were 15 minutes in to the first attempt at doing this interview. And it's funny because your internet started shitting out. While at the same time, I started getting phone calls from unknown local numbers. And I'm like, what the hell's going on and whatnot. So then finally my wife calls me while one of the breaks while I was waiting for you to get your internet back online. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to use this opportunity, call my wife back. And then she's like, hey, the school's been trying to get a hold of you. Our daughter's not feeling well. She's experiencing some COVID-like symptoms. So my daughter had to come home. But
how's she doing now?
We wound up taking her to get a COVID test, and her results already came back negative.
Oh,
so
good.
You know, it's she's gonna stay home the rest of the week, and then she's gonna try school next week. But she's doing her remote learning, so everything's going good. But yeah, here we are, round 2.
Yeah,
doing this interview.
You know, you're the second week in a row that I had to try to do this with 2 times with people. The last time I had to drive to an undisclosed location.
Yes.
Doesn't that sound mysterious?
Yes, it does.
In Binghamton to get some internet. Now this time we're doing it in the den of Daddybones.
Yeah,
Really nice to be here. I haven't been here in a little bit, man. It's been too long.
it has been. It's been a couple of years, and like when you called me and you're like, hey, I want to do an interview and whatnot. And I'm like, why? I haven't done anything in 4 years and whatnot. But at the same time, the more I thought about it, it's like, why not? It's been 4 years. Let's talk to somebody.
Yeah.
So,
You know, I mean, when I did this show, I agreed to do this show and I said, okay, well, I'm going to interview some people in my wrestling life that have been a lot to me. And you're definitely on the top of that list.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be here without you. Phil Bravado was a name that me and you came up with upstairs at this very house.
Yes.
Right before we got on commentary. But,
yeah, I was doing dishes and because I was being responsible husband while my wife was at work, and
yep.
I was doing dishes, and you didn't want to do the wrestling commentary as Scott. You wanted a name. You needed to come up with a gimmick. And it's funny because even before I knew you were coming over that day, doing the dishes, I believe you and I have had this conversation before, but looking back on it, I mean, at one point when I first got into wrestling, people were like, well, what's Ian Daddybones? What's that supposed to mean? You know what I mean? Because it's wrestling. Nobody understands somebody else's gimmick. Right. They need it spelled out for them.
Yeah.
So basically my whole thing with that was Ian Daddybones was a podcast host and a local shitty rapper. So that was whole one persona. But then crossing over into no man's land in the Wild West of indie wrestling, you know, you needed an identity. And I kind of looked at it like, well, I already have an identity. I have the identity that I've been for the past couple of years. But then after talking to some people, I actually started pondering and thinking about, well, maybe I should come up with a gimmick specifically for wrestling. And that's when I was thinking about I was hearing so many words within hip hop and whatnot, like swagger and bravado and everybody's flexing, you know, years before drip. And so it's looking at that, I was thinking bravado. That would be a cool name.
Yeah.
And it's you need something catchy and something that rhymes. And it's on one hand you heard it, wrestling was changing. You were hearing the old stories of hotel parties where the legends are doing coke and whatnot.
Right.
And then you're hearing modern wrestling where it's no drugs, wellness policy, piss tests, and everybody's doing core fitness and fucking what's that shit John Morrison does, the parkour.
Jesus. Oh God,
running and jumping off of walls and shit like Sonic the Hedgehog. And
that's terrible for your ankles. I could never do that shit. Man.
Overdone.
Well, I remember it was part of the Biggie song, Party and Bullshit. What happened was I remember telling you about that. on the way over, I remember listening to that song, and I remember hearing that, and then told you it rhymed, and we talked about it. And then I remember like we were talking, and we were about to get on commentary because you were my first commentating partner, and it's like, what the hell do I call myself? Like, you have this real well established brand, you know, and at the time it wasn't that established or yet. I mean, you hadn't done the work yet, you know, but you had just started getting on, and that's actually how we got to know one another. I had found you out while you were doing the original Geeks podcast, and I was running 607 magazine. I was trying to feature local people, and you were definitely on there. That podcast was running downhill, brother. I mean, you were doing real good stuff there. Talk a little bit about the podcast. Talk a little bit about why it started and how it all came to fruition.
Well, the podcast basically started because, I mean, like, to even and just like the other day we were talking about before the podcast, there was the local rap thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like the whole, and even like you asked, where did the name Ian Daddybones come from? And it's like the thing with the Ian Daddybones is I was going through a dark time in my life, or maybe I was just going through emotion of a dark time. Maybe, you know, looking back on it, like, yeah, it was dark, but I've had shittier situations since then.
Right.
But like back then when I'm like 22 years old and my daughter just turns a year, and, you know, it's obviously not working out with me and her mom. There ain't no future in that. But at the same time, I got to pay child support. I got to be responsible. I got to get a decent job so I could take care of my kid. And that's when I started working at an insurance company. But right before I started working at the insurance company, I met a dude named Pete. And Pete just came home from the Army. Pete was in a band that he told me about called Spicy Placenta. Okay. And that's what the name of their Army band was. And they basically did like cover songs and worked on original shit. And so Spicy Placenta was doing their thing while these guys were in the United States Army. And you know, Pete was now home. Pete had a factory job. He was making decent money. And you know, in the background on his downtime, he liked to hang out. He liked to go check out local music. He liked to play guitar, and he liked to smoke some butt.
Right.
And with me, I like to play video games, you know, and I like to smoke some bud when my kid wasn't around. And, you know, friendship was born, brotherhood was eternal. And it's like one of those things where he was in a band, and I always thought that was pretty cool, because it's like one of those things where, like, even like watching Pete play guitar, I was like marking out for him, like, hey, this is the greatest guitar player I ever seen. I've ever seen in my life. Like, hey, this is phenomenal. And you know, that's the thing. Like, Pete and I was going through a dark time. I was very depressed and whatnot, and I was having a hard time finding a job that I needed that was gonna get me to grow up, pay my support, and somehow pay for an apartment and whatnot. You know what I mean? The struggles of life, young life.
Sure.
And so it's like Pete and I came together one night and we were hanging out, and Pete jokingly was like, you know, you should take everything that's bottled up and you're all pissed off about, and you should put that into like poems and shit, like poetry or song lyrics and whatnot. So, you know, Pete and I started, you know, coming up with like rap flows and whatnot, and just started writing rhymes. And it was like done in like style of what we liked listening to. Like, he liked Beastie Boys and stuff like that, and Run DMC and classic hip hop. And I love classic hip hop. And I was also, you know, a juggalo. Right. I loved that Psychopathic Records, Insane Clown Posse style music with all the side acts and other groups on the label. And, you know, that was my thing back then. So basically Pete and I were writing rhymes, and we were like coming up with like, you know, shitty rap songs. You know, there was no real plan of action. There was no real motive. Like, it was never, we're trying to be rap stars. It's just, this is what we're doing in our free time for fun. Half the time we're writing rhymes, then we're in his living room spitting lyrics and shit and having a good time. But then it got to a point to where, you know, we were, you know, in the beginning, it was like coming up with a name for myself. You know, it's like I wanted something neat that was like 3 syllables that like rolled off the tongue like Spider-Man. You know what I mean? Right. So Daddybones, you know what I mean? And the whole reason for the Daddybones thing is, you know, on one hand, it kind of sounds corny, but at the same time, it kind of sounds fresh, which is why now it's Ian Daddybones. You know what I mean? There's a first name. It's like my last name now. But back then it was like, well, I'm skinny. My friends jokingly call me Bones, and eventually this kid's gonna know who I am, and this kid's gonna call me Daddy, and
Right.
so that's it.
It all went together,
and that's where it went together. And with Pete, it was like, Pete became 00 drunk, and I don't really know the true story behind the 00 drunk. I think it was just, I honestly think it was him drunk one night doing the James Bond theme while he was holding while he was holding 2 beers, like and it's like, hey, 00 drunk, or one of those for me, or do I got to get one for myself? And that's basic. And then next thing you know, next day he's like, yeah, I wrote this while I was at work. I'm 00 drunk. And I'm like, that's the best shit I ever heard in my life.
You're going to be huge, Pete. You're going to be huge with the 00 drunk.
Man, we're going to be at the gathering of the Juggalos in like 4 years. It's going to be awesome.
People will be asking where 00 drunk is. Man, full circle. Well,
but
yeah,
working that insurance job.
Yep.
Sorry, not meaning to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Trying to answer your question with a long ass story. Basically, I got a job working at an insurance company, and it was a temp job. I'm doing a lot of data entry, and at the same time, it was a temp job, but there was room for permanent employment.
Yep.
So I was able to hold on to that temp job for like 3 years.
Wow. Okay.
And over
that's a long temp job.
Yeah, it's like basically no benefits, no safety net.
Yeah.
And it's like, we can let every tomorrow could be my last day.
Yeah, that's the fire at will kind of thing that they have here.
And that's the thing, it's
terrible.
It really is. And it's like I had to pay my dues at this place for 3 years, like while everybody else is like son, daughter, cousin, sister-in-law, nephew, 4th cousin who was a foreign exchange student. Even the foreign exchange student gets a fucking job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nothing against foreign exchange students.
No, but when they're getting promoted before you've been there 3 years.
Paying dues and shit.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah.
So it's like while working in an office environment, I'm on a computer, I'm in a fucking cubicle, and I'm doing all this office work and shit, and everybody's got iTunes on their fucking on their computer. So I had iTunes, and I'm listening to podcasts. Like I'm listening to like Harry Potter podcasts. I'm listening to like Between the Ropes and like trying to get Howard Stern and whatnot and all this other stuff. And at the time, I was a big fan of the television show Lost. Yeah. When everybody was trying to like dissect that show and whatnot, I was listening to Lost podcasts, and eventually I found a daily podcast by the name of Keith and the Girl, which started in New York City, I believe Queens. And at the time they were a couple, they were living together. He was an aspiring stand-up comedian, and she was in the theater scene and whatnot. So basically I'd listen to Keith and the Girl every day, and it was like comedy and it was like real life. They were like basically giving you an insider's look of what it was like living in New York City. Right. And their adventures. And over time they have guests. They introduce you to new people. And it just became so fascinated with it. And with listening to so many different podcasts and seeing like how these different shows are produced, not to mention learning about networks that they're on and whatnot and websites they're affiliated with, it gave you a lot to think about. And it's like, I had friends, that we'd hang out, we'd watch wrestling, we'd play video games, but, and that's it's one thing to share similar interests with video games and movies and whatnot. But if you could like go back to the early days of your childhood and relive those nostalgic moments through somebody else's experience who played with the same toys as you did, right? That's like a deeper level of bonding and appreciation for what you had as a kid. And, that's what Jinx and I had in common. And Jinx and I would hang out and we'd watch wrestling, we'd play video games, we'd smoke L's, we'd just chill and whatnot. And the funny thing is like, Jinx and I crossed paths because he was working at a pizza shop downtown. I was working at the insurance company, but at the same time, I had an apartment over on Chapin Street, right? So I'd walk every day from Chapin Street to downtown. And that's when me and Pete we're doing the Twin Widow Mafia thing because that's the shitty name we came up with for our rap group, which I still can't give you a real meaning as to what the hell that means. That's a whole nother hour.
We got to go a couple L's in.
Seriously.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
one.
But basically, Twin Widow Mafia is what Pete and I called ourselves.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was at that time. That's when we were writing songs, and that's when we were working on like we found a local producer who had a studio. And that's when we first worked on like a 3-track demo, professionally recording our music, just learning how to do it. You know what I mean? And again, it's not like we were trying to get a record deal or get signed. It's like, okay, well, it's one thing when we're drinking beers, smoking L's in the living room, having a good time being goofballs on a Friday night. But dude, what if we actually recorded this shit? I bet we can make it sound good. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's the thing. Like,
it's that next level of finding a hobby and finding your passion. Is like, let's just like mess around with this for a minute. Let's tool around and let's try to figure it out. And then you get to the serious point where you're like, hey, we might be good at this. Let's at least try, right?
Yeah.
It's the next level.
And to me, it was just something to do to pass the time. So I didn't have to worry or think about being broke, not seeing my kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Getting paid every 2 weeks just to know that your child support's getting deducted. And it's like you work 2.5 weeks as a temp. After your child support gets deducted, you're lucky. I was lucky. I was lucky if I almost had $300 every 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's all the while knowing you could be fired at any time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No benefits, nothing.
Why aren't you committed?
Yeah.
Are you nuts? Like, what are you talking about?
And the worst part is like you're paying your dues for like 3 years, and it's like, well, if you had the degree, it'd be easier. But it's like, yeah, but then I got to not be here. I got to be in school and whatnot.
It's like, well, okay, pretend that I was in school when I was working here. I'm a junior now, right?
Yeah,
like, you know what I'm saying? I've been here 3 years.
So as I'm working as a temp, and Pete and I are doing the demo and whatnot, we just like came up with like stupid flyers.
Yeah.
Just to get hung, just to like try to create a buzz and just be like, hey, we got a 3-track demo coming out. You know, be on the lookout for it, even though you don't give a rat's ass. And nobody did, but that's not the point.
No.
The point is we were having a good time and we were doing our thing. And so anyway, I was hanging flyers one day. I happened to come across Nerd Cheese, and I came across a dude working the counter. And I asked him if I could hang a flyer, and he's like, our store doesn't allow that, but your flyer looks kind of neat, but so I wouldn't mind having one. So that's when I gave Jinx a Twin Widow Mafia flyer, and he hooked me up with a slice of pizza and whatnot. And then I went about my day. But then that was also the time that when New York State first banned smoking in bars.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So the old Club Eclipse.
Yeah.
Downtown.
Sure.
They had a $5 all you can drink smoke out New York type thing. It was like I believe it was like a Friday. I don't remember what day SmackDown was on. All I know is it was a day that SmackDown was on TV.
Okay.
And I had
it's been on so many different nights. I can't even remember.
Well, I had a friend named Magic, and Magic invited me out to this smoke out New York thing. All you can drink $5 Coors Light piss shit. And
come drink some water.
Yeah. So basically, ran into Jinx at that. And then he's like, hey, you want to hang out sometime and watch some anime or whatnot or some movie? And we hung out and instantly became one of my best friends. And
that was all from like a random pizza spot.
Random pizza.
Stopping in and trying to promote your stuff.
Yeah, random pizza spot trying to promote my stuff.
Yeah.
Then running into him at a bar by chance. Seeing SmackDown on the TV.
Yeah.
And then just making a connection through wrestling, and then it's like, oh, I got a PS2 and blah blah blah, and you know, friendship was born. And but then it's like the more we hung out, it's like it just reflected back in our childhood and the shit we were into as kids. And it's like with me listening to podcasts at work, it became a factor of how can I make this work between the music, what we do, hanging out, and the bond we seem to have. Like with me listening to podcasts, we should be doing a podcast,
right?
Like, we should be having these talks.
If we're hanging out and talking like this anyway, right? have a microphone between us.
Yeah, definitely.
And
of
course.
So basically, I I thought it out for a while, and then I pitched the idea to him because I happened to buy a podcasting kit and a musician's friend, which is now known as Guitar Center.
Yep.
And so Pete had musician's friend catalogs, and then I started getting them sent to my house because it was like a constant wish list of stuff we'd love to get someday if we had the money for it.
Like a podcast starter kit type deal.
Well,
like
it eventually led
everything.
to that, but I'm talking about like, oh wow, they got a digital Tascam 4-track recorder and whatnot, and
right,
and stuff like that, and or a digital recorder, and but yeah, eventually I did see an ad for a package for a $300 podcast kit. It came with a mixer, came with actually came with those microphones.
Oh, yeah,
I still had the microphones from that original kit. So it came with those stands, those microphones. It came with the mixer. It came with like this Cakewalk Pyro software. So I have like an interface on the laptop. And from there, the original Geeks podcast was born.
That's cool. I remember checking them out, you guys out, and I'm like, yeah, we got to do a story on these guys. And at the time, I was running 607 magazine, which featured local artists and stuff like that. And
yes,
we connected, and I interviewed you. And there was also around that time. Now, before we get into like Keith Zimmer and ECPW coming to town and us doing that, you were talking about connecting with people and connecting with Jinx at the pizza place was random. Another random thing that the more people are going to know about your connection with is Sean Carr.
Yes.
And you met Sean. I mean, Sean obviously has become this indie darling now, but you've met him way before this.
It's weird. I met Sean Carr like over the course of trying. I mean, before the podcast. I actually met Sean before the podcast. I met Sean during the Twin Widow Mafia days, and it was
This is like what? This is like 2009?
2000. Well, I'm gonna say it started in 2005.
Wow. Okay.
Because Amber and I got married in 2005.
Okay.
We moved from Chapin Street over to Rush Ave.
Okay.
And that's when we moved out of my apartment into a 2-bedroom apartment. When now we're married, this is our first home together, and that way my daughter Julia had her own bedroom, and the thing was that was like Julia was our flower girl when we got married, and she was 4, so she was 4 going on 5 when we were living on Rush. But basically where Rush Ave is, it's basically one street behind this Weiss Market supermarket, CVS Plaza. And
that's the one right over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically what it is there was a path between one of the guys. The guy across the street had a path cutting through his backyard right behind the store, so you could just
shortcut
right
to the store.
Lot. Yeah.
Yep.
And he didn't mind if people cut through it.
Nice guy.
Like I actually moved. He's like, hey, if you needed to go to the store, don't worry about walking around. Just cut through here. And I'm like, oh, thanks.
Only $1 a pass, right?
Yeah.
He's sitting here doing business.
Neighborhood bridge troll. neighborhood bridge troll is not a bad guy. But so basically I would whenever I get Julie on my visitation weekends, be like, okay, we got to get your cereal, we got to get your lunches for the weekend, let's go to the store. So me and Julie would go to the store, and that's when Sean Carr was in high school. He was working a high school kid job. He's doing a cashier thing. He's working the customer service desk and whatnot, and he was always a nice guy. Seemed happy to be there and whatnot. And it's funny because they're wearing name tags, so you see what their name is, but for some reason it's like I kept seeing Sean, but in my head I read Jason for some stupid ass reason. So for some reason I for a minute
just call him Jason.
For a minute I thought his name was Jason.
What an asshole. He's not responding to me. Oh,
well, no,
it would help if I stopped calling him Jason or Scene. It's Sean. right But damn.
But it's like going to the Weiss with my wife, with my kids, getting stuff from my house and whatnot. Just seeing this guy every time I happen to work there, and it's funny too.
This store is very local to you. I mean, it takes nothing to get there.
Well, it's like, don't get me wrong. Like yesterday, Sean Carr is today's Jim. Like every time I walk into White's, it's like, hey Jim, how you doing? It's like, hey, what's going on? It's like Jim's always there whenever I go to the store. So it's like, you know,
I think we all have that in our life, you know, a gas station attendant or something like that. Be nice to your
local Jim.
Yeah.
And
don't call him Scene. Right.
But you know, that's the thing. I remember meeting Sean Carr like when he worked at the Weiss, and it's funny because like he was there for a couple of years, and then I remember like you said, 2009. I remember there was a period where it's like I remember going to the store, not seeing him.
Yeah. And
just like thinking he like maybe got fired, maybe he quit, you know. He did look like a high school kid, so maybe he's maybe he went to college or whatnot. And so that was that.
Yeah.
But then that was also around the same time that I met you, and that's when like all of that came together, because I came across your website with 607 magazine, and I liked what you were doing, because you were like making this portal for like the local college kids to know what was going on in this dumpy ass town.
Yeah. You know how many people, you know, I did like the bar nights and stuff, like where the cheapest places are to drink at that night. And I would call the bars up and I'd be like, hey, I just want to know what your specials are like Monday through Friday. Why? Who's this? I'm just putting together a website. I don't want to be on it. It's free. It's for people to access your bar. Yeah, I don't want to be on it. Don't tell me. I don't want to be charged anything. I'm like, no, you don't understand what's going on. People are so concerned and behind for a city.
That's
here.
The shittiest part about sales pitches. Even when you have an awesome idea, nobody wants to hear it. And then when people accidentally discover something, it's like, why did anyone tell me about this?
Exactly. So we get to talking, and we're going to talk eventually about this wrestling show that's coming up. And I know that you were the one that took the first steps into the wrestling. You beat me by a couple months.
I disagree. I digress. I disagree.
Well, no, you did, because you were working for ECPW first. I came in during 3DW. That was the first one. You're
technically the portal that introduced me to that, because it was reading your interview with Zimmer on your website that
views for days.
That basically put his name on my radar.
Yeah.
I looked him up on Facebook.
Yeah.
I sent him a message. I'm like, hey, you know what? I probably sound like a weirdo. You know, I'm just like, hey, I'm just sending you a message because I just read this interview on this website about this wrestling company, and the guy in charge of it, it said his name was Keith Zimmer. So I just wondered if you were in fact the same Keith Zimmer, because I got a podcast.
How many Keith Zimmers are there?
Oh,
it's not like a Bob Smith type name.
Well, I mean, seriously, you search his name. There's other Zimmers. It's weird. Weird. There's another me.
Yeah, of course.
Same first and last name. He lives up in Buffalo.
Ian Daddybones in Buffalo, New York.
Well, another Ian Shoot name.
I know.
But like, I contacted Zimmer and I was like, hey, I got this podcast. I really like what you do. I've always loved wrestling and whatnot. And, I've always wanted like this type of product, non-WWE, to like come to my hometown and whatnot. And, and that's the thing, like fantasy ass Mark me, like when I was a kid watching ECW, like I paid attention to like the big show on a budget with ECW.
Yeah.
The close, tight-knit atmosphere of the crowd. The fact that you saw the same dudes in the front row every friggin' show, like Rob Zombie looking guy, straw hat guy,
hat guy,
Hawaiian shirt guy and whatnot. And it's just like they were always there. And it's like if we had something like this in Binghamton. And it's funny because I lived on Chapin Street. Until 2005 when Amber and I got married. And the funny thing is, we lived right around the corner from the American Legion post 80.
Oh man.
You know what I mean?
Which people listening to this that don't live in Binghamton don't know, but that's like the Mecca.
Our ECW arena.
Yeah, that's like the spot, dude. There have been some crazy people coming through there. Brody came through there quite a bit.
Yeah, Brody knocked out a fucking fan in that fucking parking lot.
I remember that. There's been some moments.
But the thing is, like, but it's funny because like I just got married and moved into the place that's not on Chapin Street. Like I moved away from the Legion just as the Legion was starting to get popping. The year 2CW was born. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
it was it was up the street and around the corner from me, and I had no idea until after I moved away, and it was just getting started. But that's the thing. Like I wanted to contact Keith because I read your interview with Scott. I wouldn't mind having you on my podcast and doing an actual audio interview with you that people could download and listen to.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just throwing it all out there. I wouldn't mind promoting your show. I wouldn't mind getting wrestlers on the show to talk about the show. I want to go all in with this.
Right.
And it's like, I had Keith on the show, and from there, Keith's like, well, why don't you and your podcast people, why don't you come down? And it's funny because you got local MMA fighter Jason Hertzman Showers. It's funny because like he's doing his thing now as a cage fighter, but like 15 years ago, like I used to work with his mom at that insurance company.
Okay.
So his mom was very supportive of the original Geeks podcast in the beginning. And so she came out to that wrestling show that night. She was there, cool. And Jinx was there, and me, and it was just
now this is where
time. This is at the American Legion.
ECPW.
So, yeah, this was my first ECPW show. This was my first time being in the Legion. I can't say it's my first. No, actually, it's not my first time being in the Legion because I did attend a 2CW show that the Blue Meanie was at. 2CW
used to own the Legion when they were around.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no promotion. I mean, Pro Wrestling Illustrated had ranked them the best promotion of that year, indie promotion, and they deserved it. I mean, they had gone. 2CW was a force, man. It was cool.
Yeah, 2CW. I hope someday gets the recognition it deserves.
Yeah.
Like I really like for like people talk about Evolve and CZW and whatnot, but I really wish 2CW would get like at least
on that level for sure. Yes, absolutely.
It at least deserves a documentary.
It does. They call magic, and it's so hard to catch. It's so hard to get magic in a bottle, but they definitely had so that
much,
there.
like honestly though, it's so looking at 2CW though. There's so much wrestling history.
Mm-hmm.
Like even with like people involved with owning the company, starting the company, and whatnot. It's just there's so much history there, and like people involved and whatnot. Like you may not know who so and so is unless you hear who so and so is and meet them, and even get to know people that respect them and have their own positive stories and reflections on the individual and whatnot. But like 2CW is amazing. Like that was like one of my first experiences up close with indie wrestling.
Yep.
And it's funny because I remember going there specifically to see the Blue Meanie. And it's weird because I met a guy named Brian Burton. Everybody knows him as Viking Hat Guy.
Yes.
And it's like I met him for the first time at a 2CW show, just checking this place out. And years later and whatnot, I'm like getting booed by him at like Xcite shows and whatnot. It was pretty cool.
Well, we'll get there, but
yeah,
3DW starts. I get into 3DW because of you, and you bring me down to the training center for the first time, and I remember seeing Sean Carr training people and yelling. Actually, as soon as I walked in, this is how small this place is. I don't know if you've been there yet, or since, I shall say. The 3DW training center is now a mini mart bodega.
I see.
I don't know how, when you look at that place, you go, how do they fit a ring in there?
I saw that.
How did we fit a ring in there? It's impressive that you can get a ring in there. It was like a foot on each side of room. It was insane.
Yeah, it really was. It really was.
Yeah.
Like just like the side room of a karate dojo.
Yeah.
That wasn't getting used.
Literally.
That technically had the potential to be its own shop storefront.
Yep.
And yeah, they turned it into a wrestling school, and it had the glass windows and whatnot, which I always thought was neat, but they always wanted to cover that up.
Yeah, we did a lot of that was weird. We did a lot of cool things down there. I remember filming a lot of promos down there. I remember cops getting called.
Oh my god, that one time, yeah, Patrick Burton, I think was the name of the
he threw a couple holes in that place.
Well, no. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the promo we were shooting in the alley that the cops got.
Yeah.
And whatnot. And it's like the cops showed up and were like, yeah, we got reports that there was a black man getting assaulted in the alley. And he's like, no, officer, I'm the only black man here. I'm holding the camera.
Yeah, and here's the kicker. I'm the one that got the chair shot outside in front of the subway.
Oh my God.
Do you remember that?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so we're sitting out there doing a promo, and I'm just a commentator, and little Daddy C's trying to get some heat. So he's going to come and knock me in the head with a chair. And no one tells
on the sidewalk and boom, hits him in the head.
It's awful because we don't let anybody know. So there's this big subway right across the street,
just guerrilla style.
And these people, just without knowing what's happening, see me standing there talking to somebody, and then this man come up and just blast this dude in the back of the head with a chair.
They probably thought we were local. Yo, some guy from WBNG's talking to some motherfucker. Dude just blasted with a chair. Holy shit.
Man, I would have loved to have been a fly on that wall.
But no, like overall though, like I found out about this local scene through your website.
Yep.
I read a name. I contacted the individual. I did an interview. I got invited to go to a show. And then I got invited to come back to the next one. And then basically after that first show, okay, this is how it works. They had this show in March. Okay, you got an April show. Okay, that gives us 4 weeks. How do you want to do this? Well, what if I get 4 guys and then next week you do an interview and then you do an interview and whatnot? And you know, the only thing that was like weird about it was just like so much to take in at once.
Yeah, because
it's like you go from doing interviews and assisting and helping out with promoting shows, and then next thing it's like, hey, do you want to? We got an idea to include you at the next show,
right?
And that's when like they had a show in Cortland, and
did that surprise you when they said that? Was that like, what, me, or were you like, of course, yeah, I'm doing this thing and we're doing it good? Like, how did you feel when they asked you to be a part of the actual show?
I mean, the reality is the first time I was nervous as hell.
Sure.
Just because it just kind of, it was basically like, hey, I'm presenting you with an idea. By the way, you got 10 seconds to make up your mind because we're going live.
Right.
And it's like,
literally,
yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do?
Hold this microphone and look straight.
Yeah. We want you to hold it. We're going to drag you down to the ring with us. You're going to have a microphone. We're going to start beating the hell out of somebody. You're going to act like you're completely appalled and you're completely upset as everything's going on. Meanwhile, you start yelling at a group of people that just got done beating the hell out of somebody. You're going to start yelling at them, demanding answers. And it's like, oh, great.
Good. That sounds fun.
Yeah, totally.
So we get to 3DW. We get to
and long
December.
Story short, I mean, I'm not going to get into the whole reason why ECPW became 3DW. It's just life moves on, and
sure.
You know, it moved to a different company and basically picking up where they left off, so to speak. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that is what happened. I mean, I remember it was only my second month in. No, it was my first month in. And Keith had a fight with the then owner, Fred Spencer of 3DW. And like Keith was gone for like a whole year. I didn't even know who he was. You know what I mean? I heard about him. But we just continued to roll with 3DW. And I thought that was fun. We did a show that we touched on earlier, 3DW Monster.
Yeah. And
that was
actually where we were at in the last interview when the internet started shitting out.
Yeah. We were talking about how Jinx had not showed up. He had no-showed the event as the cameraman, and I was asked to be the cameraman, and that's how I got. Well,
it's not that he no-showed. It's something came up with his daughter, I believe, and he couldn't make it at the last minute. But at the same time, well, no, it's kind of bad because I kind of felt bad. Yeah. Because like thinking about it, like I'm not saying like I ripped him a new asshole by any means, but I was quite disappointed because like. If he called me in the morning and was like, hey, I can't make that show today, it's not a big deal. But when it's like, okay, the door's open at blah, 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 and I told you to be here at blah, 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 and doors open and you're not here, and it's like, hey, what's going on? Sorry, man, I can't make it. Yeah, I'm a little stressed out and like in a clutch. Like, well, what am I gonna do? But luckily, you were there and got an opportunity and you filmed that show. And
yeah, I was like, oh, I know how to do a camera. That'll be fun. And I thought they were gonna put me stupidly. I thought they were gonna put me like in the back or something. They're like, yeah, just go up to the ring. What? They're like, yeah. You just go up to the ring. I'm like, well, what do you mean?
Yeah,
like, you're going to be around the ring.
Isn't it the weirdest thing in the world? Like they give you a camera and they're like, you know how to shoot, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, don't miss anything. And it's like, I never did this before. So,
and by the way,
I'm just going to film it how I think wrestling looks.
Yeah,
TV,
exactly.
And that's basically what you try to do is mimic shots.
Well, one of the most overlooked things in all of that is, oh, by the way, dodge people, know what's going on, have an idea of where people are going. I mean, I remember filming the first night.
People are going to choose to include you and not tell you.
Well, that's the thing. The first night, I'm trying to get out of the way of Little Daddy C, of Corey, and he goes, get out of my way. He's just totally playing character. And I'm like, oh, shit, I'm fired. I'm going to be fired today. This sucks. Well, it was fun to be in the wrestling business. And obviously he's playing a character. He plays a good heel. So he got me. And I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, and that's like the weirdest
crazy moment, man.
Because like with 3DW, like I don't know, like I was doing an audio podcast. I was trying to think of ways to like be innovative and creative and like take it to the next level. And I'm like trying to incorporate video. So I can't afford a real expensive camera. So I basically went the budget route. I wound up buying like a flip camera.
Sure. Yep.
Which were amazing.
Yeah.
For what they were able to do.
Hell
the flip cams were great. But it's like I had a flip cam and I'm like taking that flip cam with me because like it, going back to Sean Carr, it's like when I made contact with ECPW and Keith wanted me to check out the wrestling school for the first time. They weren't in Rexers. We weren't in that now a bodega location.
Right. That's why you beat me to the business.
They were in a warehouse up on off of Conklin Ave. And it was just an abandoned warehouse.
Really?
Because that's when Breeze McNasty was teaching.
Yeah, I do remember seeing some video footage of some promos that were shot there, and I was like, "Where is that?" I do remember that now. I've never been there.
Well, Well, it was. I remember going there for the first time, and when I walked in there, I saw that shot. I saw Jason from the Weiss. At the wrestling, I saw good old Jason from the Weiss at the wrestling school.
Man,
no, I see Sean Carr, and I'm just like, "Hey, man!" He's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Oh, I got my podcast, and I'm checking out the wrestling school, and I'm helping promote the next show on my podcast and whatnot." And Keith's like, "Oh, you know Sean?" And Sean's like, yeah, he comes to the grocery store that I work at all the time and whatnot. So he's like, I've known him for a couple of years. And yeah, so it's like basically linked up with Sean Carr from like that moment forward. And it's like, it's like, don't get me wrong. It's not like I ditched Keith and started hanging out with Sean. It was, I knew Sean before he got into the business.
Right.
And it's like, when it was like seeing a familiar face as soon as I like walked in there. And it's like, I don't know. It's weird. Like this kid that I seen at the grocery store, that's like, seems to be the only one that actually wants to work there.
Right.
And is like deals with dickheads and like thieves and is like, still has a smile on his face.
Yeah.
And
you come in and harassing him every day.
Yeah. And, it's like, I'm seeing him do his thing and it's like, oh my God, he seems to be really good at this.
Yeah.
And, so then it became like promoting the shows, but at the same time following Sean's career.
Right.
Because then it became like, Sean's training, Sean's working student matches, Sean's getting opportunity to go work other places. And then I got asked, hey, do you want to go with me to the show this weekend?
Like, hell yeah.
And it's like, and then next thing you know, it's like, hey, I got this show this weekend, but it's not just us going. We're going to be going with IB Green and Cage.
Oh, geez.
So then I start traveling with them. And then it became a thing of these car rides are fun.
Yeah.
You guys should try. You guys should ride with us every weekend.
Yeah.
And that's basically where how the MCW trips in like Buffalo started. That's how the Jersey shows started. Oh God, I always get the initials confused. It's either DWF or DFW.
Sure.
Was the organization, but that's where we met. Like, it's actually funny because that's where I met. Like, I met Blackie and Tyreno down there, and even Ember Moon when she wrestled as Athena.
Yeah.
She used to
make the rounds.
Yeah. But
what do you think of Sean's career now? Like, you see this kid, Jason from Weiss, and now you see him in winning Super 8, and you see him in the PWI magazine with a feature article.
You know what? Let's stop. Let's pause. Let's go right to that.
Yeah.
Because
that the moment you were like, holy shit?
I want to say yes and no.
Yeah.
Because I want to share a personal story with this. When I was a kid, my parents were divorced. Right, my mom and stepdad live up in Schenectady, Clifton Park. My dad and my stepmom live in Binghamton, and so my parents always stuck my ass on a Greyhound bus, like back and forth every other weekend. So it's like I'd spend like 6 hours every other weekend on a Greyhound bus, like reading wrestling magazines and whatnot, and Nintendo Power to fucking keep me occupied and
keep you sane.
Yeah, so I'm like. I remember flipping through like wrestling magazines in like 96, 97, because I'd always get like Pro Wrestling Illustrated, The Wrestler, Inside Wrestling, like
the After Mags,
the trio of After Mags. And I'd you'd learn so much just in the back of the magazine with the rankings. And you'd see like all the random 3-letter organizations that you never heard about. And you're like, wait, Jimmy Snuka works for this place?
Where, New Jersey? I'm still saying that 11 years later.
Well, it's like, I remember like reading about the Super 8 tournament when it first started.
Yeah.
And like back in the day, when like Ace Darling and Reckless Youth and guys
Devin
like
Storm was in that trio.
Yeah. And
that's my group. I love them groups.
And Steve,
big Reckless Youth fan.
Steve Carino was part of that
even very young.
That's why I'm such a huge Steve Carino fan. like I got so excited at that first like the comeback of 3DW that said, surprise bitches, we're now Xcite. That show, I was so excited to like work a show with Steve Carino. Like he was definitely one of my favorites that like never got that big money contract to be on WWE or like hold the Intercontinental Championship or something.
Yep.
But it's like, I remember like reading about the Super 8 tournament and whatnot in like 97, 98, 99, like buying every year, reading the coverage of that, an article of that year's tournament. And even when it got to the later year or other, future years where it was like Christopher Daniels and whatnot, and other people are competing in it. And it's like, it was such a big deal to me and so friggin' cool. And even like when I found out that like when Christian like signed his WWE contract, he was at the time ECWA heavyweight champion.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, that's cool. When he was like Christian Cage, like way back when. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so it's like I remember the early years of it. Mm-hmm. So, and I remember those early opportunities and those first car rides going to Jersey and whatnot, and sitting in a car with Sean and just being like, kind of making a bucket list. Not, you know what I mean? Like
a who's who of who you want to work, like or where you want to work, or
just like a bucket list. You know what I mean? Like, you know how many idiots walk into a wrestling school on day one and be like, so what are we going to do to get WWE? It's like, first of all, get that thought out of your friggin' head. Start at the bottom, Drake. Yeah. And it's like, and it's like, just having like that talk about like, oh, you know what? Screw WWE's years away. So let's not even think about that. But I think it'd be kind of cool if you got a chance to work for ECWA and be in a Super 8.
Sure.
Like even if you got to compete in a Super 8. Not only did he compete in a Super 8, but the following year he won it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was a big deal. And some people listening to this might laugh, but as far as I'm concerned, Sean Carr has been the most relevant heel champion that ECWA has had in the past 15 years.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah,
Like
one of
when,
them.
like
I mean,
he,
Killian McMurphy just won. That's a good name to win. But
I mean, recently, but like Sean Carr hasn't been in ECWA in like 3 years.
Right, yeah, about that.
So,
yeah.
but I'm saying at the time, you know what I mean?
Oh, sure. Like, okay, yeah. I loved when Sean won that. I thought it was validation. I thought that he really deserved that. I was really happy that he won. Honestly, and no shade, I was surprised he won. And I think that's only because like nobody I know wins that shit. You know what I mean? It's like, holy God, he did. That's awesome. Like, I'm not surprised by his skill. I'm surprised that I know this guy. But it was a really cool experience.
And even looking back on it too, like he beat Leo Rush in that.
Yeah.
And like,
that's a name, huh? That's a good one you want to go over on.
Well,
sure.
I mean, it's kind of, it depends on how you look at it, because Leo Rush had his like shot to stardom, but then you know what I mean? But now he's firing back up.
He still went up. He still went up. You know what I mean? He was a really hot name on the indies at that time too. That was a big win for Sean to take that.
Yeah, definitely.
I've had the experience of working with Sean in PPW. He carried our title for a while.
Actually, you know what? The last time I was at a PPW show was when he worked Brian Pillman Jr.
Oh, no shit, really? Oh, yeah, that's right. That's the last time I think I've seen you in person, honestly. That was crazy.
No, because I ran into you and Tyler when you guys rented a car that one time.
Oh, shit.
Saw you at my job.
I remember that up at the airport. Yeah, that's right. That was after that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So we go into 3DW and you've got the ring announcing or the commentating down. You also did ring announcing. I thought you were a very good asset to that brand, because I think a ring announcer really sets the tone for what we're trying to do. And I thought having you do both the TV show and the branding of the company, as well as being the quote unquote face of the company in terms of being the announcer, in terms of being the guy that welcomed everybody. I thought you did an amazing job at that.
Right.
And did you like that better than commentating?
I had a lot of fun with ring announcing. I really did, but at the same time, I'm not going to front. And at this point, I feel I could talk about it.
Fuck it.
Like, it's not a bad thing, and I don't know if it was just us when we were coming in at the time, but not everybody gets along in wrestling.
Sure.
And basically what I'm getting at is some people were already in the middle of a conflict when I came into wrestling.
Yeah.
And there were things that, did you ever have those things where it's like something's none of your business, but you accidentally find out about it, and then you feel weird being around
too
people
many
and
times,
whatnot?
my friend.
So basically, long story short, as other people were having disagreements and whatnot, some people were getting opportunities.
Right.
And I had an opportunity to become a ring announcer, and which didn't do me any favors with the previous ring announcer. And I just want, and I'm looking at it like, hey, I'm not trying to take your spot. I just don't know what's going on. It's none of my business.
I think I remember who she was.
And again, God bless her. I love her to pieces. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I got a lot of respect for her. But at the same time, I wasn't trying to take her spot. You know what I mean? I don't know what's going on with y'all, but I'm hearing through the grapevine that you're not going to be at the show. They need a ring announcer.
Yo, take your opportunity.
Exactly.
Period.
And that's the thing.
Period.
I had fun. I had fun being the ring announcer, but that's the thing. And it goes back to something like, off camera last night, you and I were text messaging each other, and I was being open and honest about some things. And one thing I was open and honest about was bringing up the fact that I hate it when people want me to do something because they want me to be Ian Daddybones, but then they get pissed off at me for being Ian Daddybones. Like, we want you to be yourself because you're wacky and nutty, but hey, man, you can't say that. What the hell's the matter with you? So it's like, basically, some people wanted me to be Ian Daddybones, and that's what I enjoyed about ring announcing, when I was able to be Ian Daddybones. But when I go and work for somebody else and they want me to be something different,
like a suit and tie type thing.
Yeah. And it's and it's nothing against Johnny Moose, because he gave me opportunities in Xcite. But when it came to being a ring announcer, Johnny Moose wasn't an Ian Daddybones.
Right. He wants a straight lace.
Exactly.
Right.
Which is totally cool. And I never bitched and complained, and I'm still not bitching and complaining. I understand.
You have a Shock Jock type persona.
And because that's what I've always been a fan of.
Yeah.
And I look at Ian Daddybones as like, there's so much Shock Jock and off the wall stuff that I found so nutty and entertaining as a kid, that I honestly look at Ian Daddybones as a character, and will always look at myself as part Pee Wee Herman, part Dennis Leary, part Howard Stern.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's like how I would honestly describe myself in my presentation. But the reality is, with me doing ring announcing, I was such a fan of the way Insane Clown Posse did commentary on wrestling matches.
I remember you showing me that.
My whole thing was, well, what if Shaggy Two Dope was a ring announcer?
Right.
Which is funny because I've seen Shaggy Two Dope as a ring announcer, and he's a way better Ian Daddybones than Ian Daddybones.
Well, I don't know about that. Well,
I'm just being honest. But,
so am I.
But yeah, so, basically the 3DW thing started. Fred Spencer owns this local Fed, and, he has his wrestlers and people that left ECPW, and Fred wanted a show. Mm-hmm. And Fred knew that I would film matches for the guys, because that was like, yeah, there was a wrestling school, but I never exactly went to the school as a student. I didn't pay a weekly payment to the school.
Either one of us,
but at the same time,
you weren't training.
But at the same time, in a sense, I was training, but I feel my training was paid off by doing favors. And I don't mean doing favors by doing favors. I'm talking about recording matches, editing matches, giving dudes something to have available to put online, to show people, friends, families,
getting reps.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way you do it. There's nobody that comes in.
Everybody wants an interview. They call WWE, send us a tape.
Right.
I make your tapes.
At PPW, I'm sometimes asked about commentating, and like, hey, how did you get into commentating? Like, what did you do? Did you go to school for this? I'm like, don't ever go to school for commentating. They're taking your money, kid. You just start doing it. I mean, that's how we started. How do you
get into the wrestling business? You just hook up with some asshole that has a podcast.
That's it. And then just call in every week, and he'll never go away. He'll be your co-host, and then you'll get in. No, but that's wild, man. I remember the times when 3DW went on about a year. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was an eternity. And I didn't think it was a bad eternity. It just felt like the wrestling business was so new to me that when you first get in, I feel like your first year, at least for me, goes very slow. I felt like, wow, I'm learning all this shit. Like every single week I get to do this, and it's awesome. And then maybe this just happens to be with age. As you get older, time goes faster as well. But
yeah.
I remember that it was about a year, and then there was this big break off. And there was just like this big fight between a lot of things,
rival promoters, rival companies,
and a lot of people got mixed.
Yeah.
And I ended up,
it goes back to it's not my business, but I accidentally find out. And now I kind of feel awkward because I know your business, but I like you. And I don't want to, I need an adult.
It's crazy. It's crazy when you think about it, like how immature it was back in the day. I mean, me and you are doing this good show. And then I was friends with Corey, and I hadn't known Keith, but I had heard through the grapevine that, Keith's the deal, like go with him. So I'm just like, okay, I'm not really happy with Fred. I wasn't really happy with the situation that was going on. And again, this is stupid because of course I'm happy with the fucking situation that's going on. I'm in the fucking wrestling business, right? Like who the fuck are you? Like just how quickly you take that for granted. You know what I mean? And that's why I always like to see new people come in, but we get intertwined, me and you. We break up our commentary alliance here, and you go with Xcite, and I go with ECPW. These are two rival companies. We're found on the opposite sides of the tracks. Again, stupid shit. But talk a little bit about.
Yeah, it was weird. He was on one side of the tracks, and he's all walking. I'm on the other side of the tracks, and I'm looking at him all.
Talk a little bit about like Xcite Wrestling, because I know that it came in as a brand new thing.
I really don't know, because everything kind of happened so fast, because it was like the ECPW thing, and then 3DW started, and then Fred, and then the weird that's the weird thing is like I don't know. I've been added and deleted by Fred so many times on Facebook over the years.
Am I the only one? No. Thank goodness.
And the thing is, like, I don't know if he thinks like I did something wrong to him or what.
What's up, Fred?
But half the time, hey Fred. But half the time, I don't know what's going on, because like, it's like I felt for the guy.
Yeah, me too.
Because the guy's investing his real money to buy this wrestling company, buy this ring, get this promoter's license, thinking he's going to be the next Paul Heyman or Vince McMahon, Vince Russo, whatever you want him to think he is or whatnot. And it's not a dig at him.
Right.
But it's like, I quickly learned a term that day, and that day was money mark.
Yes.
Because that's all I heard people call Fred was a money mark.
Yes.
All he's just a wannabe promoter with cash to spend. And some people took advantage of him. Some people wanted nothing to do with him just because it's like only a matter of time. Like he's got matches in his toes. It's only a matter of time before he burns himself and whatnot.
Correct.
And that's the problem. I think when Fred got into it, Fred had his vision, but at the same time, Fred wasn't planning on walking into local wrestling drama. And I feel Fred got pulled in different directions because he didn't know his head from his ass in the wrestling business. And that's not a dig.
No,
none of us did.
Yeah, he had no experience at doing this. It's not like he spent 10 years in the business prior to this. He had just, I think he had started going to shows at 2CW.
And it's like there's people that think we took advantage of him.
Yeah.
And we didn't.
Yeah.
Because he came to us. He's like, hey, you guys seem to know what you're doing with video production and editing and whatnot. How would you guys like to do a TV show for me? And all you and I did was film matches. And then
talk over them,
talk over them. We did each match individually, and then piece everything together like a Lego, and then got the finished project.
Well, you did that. I talked. you deserve all the credit for 3DW Monster. You're the one who did the editing.
Well, see, but that's the thing. Like, look at the cameras. Like, you got the Three Ropes logo when you want it to get shown and whatnot. A bottom third and on-screen graphic.
Isn't that crazy that I can?
It is, but at the same time, it's not that hard. So I feel exactly. I feel like I don't deserve that much props. You know what I mean? Because like all I did was upload it.
But you didn't, because I'm just hitting a button to do that. You're not. You're splicing it together and editing it, and that takes a lot of time, dude. And I was really appreciative of that. I really liked how those episodes came out. I really liked 3DW. I had a hell of a time in 3DW.
I mean, hey, you get a lot of appreciation for like your wrestling show or even your local public access show.
Yeah.
Like Wayne's World or whatnot. Like doing 3DW Monster. I mean, you and I produced a 60-minute local wrestling show with commentary and intro with animated text and whatnot.
The So Sick Social Club, my friend.
Sick Social Club.
That's it.
Yes.
I had an extra I need to subtract the extra cell. I gave him a little bit too much hype.
Well, they're still making music and
that's
doing
crazy.
Their thing.
I love that
I believe
song.
they just came out with a new album recently.
I love that song. That was a great song.
It really was. That whole Rue Morgue EP that they were on, that song was a part of, is great. You could buy it on digital outlets.
So what was the difference between 3DW and Xcite Wrestling in terms of maybe the locker room or how things were handled?
2 words. Johnny Moose.
Yeah.
That was the difference. I mean,
is he crazy to work with? I've heard he's crazy. Crazy in a good way, a manic way, where at the show, it's all he's doing is working on stuff. I've seen him produce a video for Brendan at the show with adding in, and maybe were you a part of this, where you were taking clips of people and adding it to the video that he was doing. He was literally on the stage at the show editing video.
Well, if you're gonna give Moose, if you're gonna give Moose props for that work ethic,
sure,
you also have to give Austin props, because chances are, if Johnny's editing one thing and while the doors are opening and fans are still rushing, finding their seats, chances are Austin's in another location of the same venue on his own laptop.
Just so people know. So people know we were talking about Austin. Who? Austin
Molinari, Austin Hope.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yep.
But the thing is, he does a lot of the you know what I mean, like the Titantron like videos, like the animated Sean Carr graphics.
Sure.
Austin does those.
Okay.
And whatnot. So chances are, if Moose is working that hard editing a video, adding clips in the day of a tribute show, chances are he has Austin working on other stuff at the same times. But no, honestly, that's the difference between 3DW and Xcite is Johnny Moose.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know, Johnny Moose, he came from 2CW.
Yeah.
Like he was a production guy. He was the music guy.
Protege of Josh Jenner, correct?
Yes.
The promoter of 2CW.
Well, I'm glad you say his name, because this is honestly true. I've never known the proper way to pronounce his last name.
The fuck, don't listen to me. I just read it.
Oh, okay. Well, fun.
I think that's how you say it. No disrespect to Josh. I love the promotion. I just don't know how to talk.
Never.
I think I am right though.
But But the thing is, he worked under Josh. He worked for Josh, and he did a lot for 2CW. And Moose, not wanting to compete with 3DW, he just wanted to have his own fed and whatnot. And
Sure.
basically, Johnny bought 3DW from Fred, and 3DW was going to have its first return show in like 10, 11 months.
That's right.
And it was going to be called 3DW Irish Vengeance. And that's when the main event was going to be Chainsaw Joe Gacy,
Yep.
who was working in Binghamton for the first time, and he was taking on Fit Finley. But that quickly got turned into a three-way dance because Brody Lee got added to the mix.
Yep.
And that was, I believe, Brody Lee's final, if not second to last, final match
At the Legion?
on the Indies before he reported to WWE for NXT.
Really?
He became Luke Harper.
I think I remember seeing I was there for that. I think I remember seeing the debut show of 3DW of Xcite. And I remember like seeing the graphics, and I remember hearing all this chatter around me on the ECPW side of, man, these guys aren't shit and they're nothing. And then I see these like really impressive looking graphics. Well, and as a production guy, I'm like, oh shit, boys, we might be in trouble.
You know
like,
what?
This
Let me
looks
share
good.
This story. This is it was even crazier because I don't know who knew.
Right.
But they kept that quiet. All I know is there was a moment when we're backstage at the Legion on the stage. You know what I mean? Behind the curtain. And there's a box of t-shirts. And I remember standing there and just reaching into the box of t-shirts and holding up a t-shirt and seeing the Occupy Shindy Binghamton.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, and I look at the back, Xcite Wrestling, and I look at Johnny, and Johnny's just got this big shitty grin. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
And whatnot. And I'm like, wait, we got a new name? He's like, yep, we're Xcite Wrestling now. And I'm like, oh my God, that sounds awesome.
The Shindy thing, which obviously shitty indie, was the beginning, I think, of the war. I think that was the shot.
You know who invented that word?
You?
Brody.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. I do remember seeing that promo way in the day. I remember seeing that company, and I remember seeing the show, and I was like, wow, these guys, they're bringing in name value, which we don't have. They've got production that we don't have. And I'm the production guy. I'm not the one that tells you everything I have is the best. You guys are totally better than me. I knew that. And I was like, oh shit. And I was like, maybe this is something to be taken more seriously. And I remember there's just a bunch of horse shit in Binghamton in terms of drama and wrestling. Me and you got caught up in that, and we stopped talking for a little bit. We've rekindled our friendship there, and mature heads have fucking prevailed. But it's just a wild ride that a lot of people don't realize in just this one city that we're in right now, in the heart of right now in downtown. Which is funny
because apparently it's one of Bret Hart's favorite cities that he's ever wrestled in.
Stop.
No.
That's crazy. You know what else happened?
There's so many times in his book where he drops Binghamton, New York.
Well, also a little historical fact here over in the showers at Binghamton, the Broome County Arena. Sean fucks Sonny, so that happened. And that's referenced as Binghamton. So that was fun. But yeah, that was
because like he had that infamous moment with Austin with the I told you, Brett, we're going straight to hell.
Yeah,
and what the ambulance?
Yep, that was cool.
And then there in his book, I think he said remember at WrestleMania 4 they tried pushing. After WrestleMania 4, they tried pushing Brett as a solo guy for a little bit.
Yep.
And then they put the Hart Foundation back together.
Yep.
I guess Vince told Brett in Binghamton that he was tagging back with Neidhart again.
Sorry, pal, you don't have what it takes. Tell him that to Bret Hart.
But no, going back to the Xcite thing, it was a whole new world. It was like I'm not saying Fred didn't know what he was doing, but at the same time, he didn't know what he was doing.
Right.
And there were too many people.
It wasn't because of ignorance. It was because of lack of experience. He just hadn't had the time in the business yet.
And at the same time, it's wrestling. He didn't know who to listen to.
Isn't that a tough
Everybody's got a voice, and
isn't that a tough one?
Yeah.
It's a tough business to navigate, man.
And that's the thing. Like, you know, Fred got out. Fred sold it all to Moose, and Moose took all of his experience and turned chicken shit into chicken salad. I mean, that's an overused term, but that's what he did. I mean, he's been doing it. He's been doing his thing, and just watching Xcite evolve over the years. And now the reality is, I can only speak from like 2012 to like 2017,
right?
Because that's pretty much when I like wrapped up my thing with Xcite. And it's not that I wanted to wrap up my thing with Xcite. Like I've been like between doing the Original Geeks podcast, you know, the Original Geeks podcast ran for 10 years from 2007 to 2016. But the thing is, the podcast kind of fell apart, and it was beyond my control because it was a website issue.
Right.
Basically,
like a technical one.
Yeah. Basically, when I got my .com and I got my server and I got my website created and originalgeekspodcast.com was live, with going through GoDaddy, like they would monitor everything. Mm-hmm. Like basically like the virus protection was included on monitoring my server and everything.
Okay.
So long story short, over the years, at some point, like 2012, 2013, they changed their policy where they pulled that feature and now it was a separate add-on service.
Yep.
I may have gotten an email. I may not have gotten an email, but as far as I'm concerned, nobody told me, brought it to my attention. Next thing you know, my entire server is getting infected with malware and viruses. And basically what it was people it was bots creating accounts.
Sure.
To like comment.
Oh, okay.
And that's basically what happened.
Oh, Jesus.
And it got to the point to where they GoDaddy eventually ran diagnostics on it, and there was nothing to salvage. Like there was so much malware and whatnot that even if I was trying to back up my episodes,
yep,
there was a chance of.
So you lost all of that?
Yeah, I lost a decade worth of fucking show.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's gotta like send steam out of your ears.
And then I joined a new project, which I thought was gonna take the podcasting thing to the next level, and that didn't work out.
I think it did for the episodes that you did do. For sure. I thought that was next level shit.
I mean, I had fun with it, but at the same time, I can't take credit for it. And that's the thing. Like I had a falling out with people.
Well, I think everybody can take credit for it, from the producer to the video to the host, in this case, you.
And that's the thing. Like I had a falling out with people that basically killed the last project. And it's like I have an issue with people involved in the show, but I don't have an issue with people responsible for producing the show.
Right.
Like for my director and my cameraman and the guy whose house that we recorded the show in, I got the utmost respect for, because they gave me a stage to perform on, and that's something I learned from wrestling.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
You listen to that promoter because they're giving you a stage to perform on. But at the same time, you know, there's other factors that wound up affecting my personal life that wound up affecting the show. And basically that project didn't work out. And I'm not going to lie, that kind of left me in a creative crunch, depression. Like I wasn't myself for like 2 years. Like, don't get me wrong, I didn't like turn to drugs or anything. It's just, it's been a rough, like we're in 2021. It's been a rough 5 fucking years. And a lot of it has to do with raising a teenage daughter who is now 20. But when she was 12, 13, 14, it was real rough. And when she was 14, it got bad. Like, and you know, and it's like, it was super tough because like, you know, everybody's like, oh, I can't wait to have a kid so I could like have somebody to watch movies with, or cuddle or this and that. And it's like, yeah, it's all fun and games when they're like 3, 5, 7, 9, but when they're 14 and 13 and they're self-harming,
it's tough years.
Like
tough.
I didn't sign up for this. You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
That was like very tough to deal with. Like, and that's something like me and my wife, along with my ex and her husband at the time, we focused on and we're dealing with, and not them, you know what I mean? So it's like half the time when people are like, God, I can't believe you posted that online, or like, he must be really mad today. It's like, no, I'm not mad. I'm just trying to make the best of my situation and whatnot. And I'm trying to keep my kid alive over here. Not to mention the fact that she when she was 14, and then I had to put a douchebag in jail for violating my daughter. I mean, that's kind of going to do something to you.
Oh, that's heavy shit.
And that's the thing. Like, you know, everyone, like, not to play off Matt Hardy, but I was seriously friggin' broken at that point.
Yeah.
Even though I was trying my best to keep it together and everything was fine. Like, on one hand, like we're talking about wrestling with me being a ring announcer, but eventually I wasn't the type of ring announcer that Moose wanted, which is okay, because it gave me an opportunity to become a manager. And eventually, by being a wrestling manager, got involved in the right angle, and next thing you know, it's like, yeah, you're gonna start managing Mark House, and then next thing you know, yeah, we're putting the belt on Mark. So it's like, so I get that Bobby the Brain Heenan moment where I'm managing the champion, and you know what I mean?
How does that make you feel in comparison to being maybe a ring announcer or a commentator, where yeah, your large asset is largely your mouth, but at the same time, maybe it feels, maybe to me, but it feels more like you're now into the business. You, as we said, you take that extra step into your passion, and now you're involved in maybe the outcome of the match, not just talking about it. You're involved in the live experience of these fans.
Because it all started one day at the wrestling school, just showing up, riding down with Sean and whatnot, and seeing Rob Cook in the ring. And, you know, I'm like, hey guys, what's going on? And Rob looks over at me and says, hey, expletive.
Rob?
Yeah. He said, hey, expletive.
That don't sound like
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say the particular F word that he called me.
Yeah.
But he says, hey, expletive. Take off your jacket and get in here. You're bumping today. And I'm like, excuse me, baking powder? You know what I mean?
Oh, my God. Rob Cook. Boy.
So next thing you know, I'm in the ring. I'm like kind of terrified because I never bumped before. And then Rob starts teaching me how to flat back bump. And then he teaches me how to do flip bumps, and then face bumps. So I was in there for like a good half hour and whatnot, just bam, bam, bam. And like friggin' Zimmer was there, and Zimmer's like, oh my God, he could actually bump without hurting himself. This is great. Oh my God. He's in friggin', like, I remember Rob and Zimmer looking at each other. And because I remember Anarchy was involved in a feud with Napoleon for the Daredevil Championship.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember like friggin' Rob joking around and was like, oh my God, maybe Ian should be your new Daredevil champion. And we all had a laugh at that. But no, I mean, eventually I learned how to bump. And then, I mean, even before 3DW, like I had moments where I like interviewed Rob Cook and Elmira, and I got punched in the face by him. And then I got thrown over his shoulder, and then he spun around and I whacked my head off the ring post. Yeah. And so it's like there was stuff like that, and you know, getting popped every now and then. Like after like he got like Anarchy and Sean wrestled each other at another Elmira show. And I was the referee of that match. Because that was another time. They're like, oh, why don't you try refereeing the match? Well,
sure.
We'll have you be the special guest referee.
Oh,
I'm a special guest. Well, yeah, you're that podcast host. So it's like, so I was the
That's another way of saying if you F it up, no one's going to care because you're the special guest.
Yeah, and...
Hold on.
5 minutes later.
Quick glitch. Pee break. No, basically, like, I was trying out being a referee one time, and it's funny because it was Sean against Anarchy, and then Rob did a run-in at the end and started attacking both of them.
Yep.
And that was the first time, and I got punched in the face by Rob, and that was the first pair of glasses of mine that he broke.
I've seen a couple pair.
Yeah,
I think about that.
he busted my glasses, and then he hit me in the nuts.
Christ.
And but you know,
he's real good at that. He let me body slam him one time only to tap my nuts. I was like, wow, this guy's really nice. And then tap, and he's like, there. He goes, there, fucker. He goes, drop me. Blap. I'm like, oh.
But that's the thing.
That's
with Xcite, like after the ring announcing thing didn't work out in Xcite before I became a manager, you know, trying to prove my worth and whatnot. Like Johnny was like, hey, we're gonna include you in a spot tonight. You think you'd be all right getting clotheslined by Joe Gacy?
What kind of question
well,
is that? Well, sure.
And it's weird because it's like one of those things where it's like, I never took a clothesline before. I'm like, I don't want to mess this up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I was very nervous going into that. And even talking to him beforehand, he's like, have you ever taken a clothesline before? I'm like, no, I haven't. And he's like, all right, here's what I'm going to do. He's like, he goes, I'm going to come at you. But as soon as you feel me hit you right here, as soon as you feel contact, you bump. So I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds easy. That sounds easy. Just wait until I feel contact.
Right.
I mean, the video's on YouTube. The video's been on YouTube for years now.
Oh my
but
goodness.
It's like he comes over to me, he takes the microphone, he's like, you ready? I'm like, let's do this. Takes the microphone, sets it down in the corner, and then immediately, like a bull, he turns around, swings his arm back, boom. I didn't even have a chance to wait to feel contact. That shit just swung right into me. My legs went over my head. My glasses went into the third row. A kid named John Stringer caught my glasses. I practically filleted myself, and that was how I got my first concussion in Xcite wrestling.
I remember seeing that, and I was like, it was at that moment that I was like, this guy is perfect for this managerial job. It is, because you've got that sort of James E. Cornette vibe where it's like, this asshole, he's such a smarmy fuck, and I just want to see him get his ass kicked. And I can tell that he's a smarmy fuck, you know. And you are a very good manager, and you make me want to see you get hurt. And only in wrestling is that a true compliment.
Very true, very true. But no, it's like that's the thing. Like, I was good at doing those ragdoll bumps, which is like, it's great to hear that you're good taking something, but it's also terrifying knowing that people want to see more.
Should have fucked
and
that
it's
up.
like, wait, what do you mean you want me to do it again? I'm lucky I survived it last night.
Right. I should have fucked that up.
I'll never forget. I'm going to share a story real quick.
Yeah, please.
Walking into the Xcite wrestling school on a Sunday. It was the day after.
This is Endicott?
No, this is when it was in JC at the Night Pen.
Oh, okay. Yep.
I walk in there, and Mikey Matexas is there, and Mikey's there, and Mikey's in the ring just shooting the shit. Students are there working on stuff, and all of a sudden Mikey looks at me, and Mikey says, "Hey, you want to see what happened to me last night?"
Uh-oh.
And I'm like,
oh,
sure.
gosh.
And this was the night that he got power bombed over the top rope onto the security rail that was propped between the ring and another security rail. I saw that shit, cringed, and I'm like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Why aren't you home resting? Like, if I got power bombed on a goddamn security rail, yeah. I wouldn't be
walking right now. Right?
Holy crap.
Yeah. That was crazy.
Yeah.
You know what spot's good? When the rival company looks and pays attention to it. They're like, oh shit. Right.
Well, it's weird. Like, I never really looked at Xcite as a rival to 2CW.
Well, no, to ECPW in the Binghamton area.
Oh, okay.
And it really wasn't even. It was just a bunch of people fighting over stupid shit. But
and it's sad.
It's crazy.
And it's sad. And the only thing I really want to say about it is because, like, I'm kind of past the local wrestling thing, and it's not because of like beefs or anything. I got other stuff going on in my life right now. Honestly,
amen.
We got 2 dead friends, And, you know, we lost Brendan. And just real quick, like, let's talk about Brendan. I'll talk about them both real quick. But with Brendan's passing, it hurt because that was at the period when Julia got raped. And we were it was after Julia got raped, and she was still self-harming herself. And she was, I mean, we're past it now. She's a completely different individual right now. But like Julia was very toxic to this house at one point. And we had a friend named Amy who volunteered to let Julia stay at her house for like 2 days, just so we can have a clear house. She can have time away. And that way maybe Amy can talk to her and whatnot. Well, this is when Spike was in town before he passed, because Spike was also staying at Amy's house because he needed a place to stay. And Amy hooked him up. And so Spike was also present while Julia was there at that house. Like, he passed away on a Monday.
Yep.
You know, this conversation between him and Julia took place on that Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, that's tough.
And all I know is before he passed away, one of the last things, I'm trying to say it slow so I don't choke up, but one of the last things he did before he died was have a heart-to-heart with my kid about not giving up on herself and why she has so much to live for.
He was like that, man. He would always want to try to have somebody feel better about themselves. When you were around Brendan, you were never in a bad mood because he was such a goofball, right? That it was a really hard day for everybody. It really was. And he'll always be missed, man. And he'll always have an imprint on my wrestling life, because the guy loved wrestling so much that it's hard to really put into words, and it's really hard to compete with. He liked wrestling much more than I did. You know what I mean?
You know, it's funny because like he was so good at what he did with his gimmick and whatnot. And it's weird because it's like I loved his gimmick, but I hated his gimmick at the same time. And it's nothing against him or Big Papa Chill.
For people who don't know, they were hillbillies.
Yeah, they were the hillbillies.
Carried a big jug and big stuffed animal.
Yeah,
right?
a big stuffed pig.
They were my boys.
I wasn't it goes back to the Godwins and like Hillbilly Jim.
Now Farmer Scott. They're my boys. I'm telling you. I mean, they had it down. Like they had that Cotton Eye Joe entrance theme, and everybody got into that shit. Oh, they were very over. But it's over.
Like, and you know, Brendan was Brendan, and you know, and like moving on to Glen, like. I don't know. Glen was like, I don't want to say he was like the Gorilla Monsoon to my Bobby the Brain Heenan, but we definitely had a feud. And it's like, that's the magic of the wrestling business, with it being a work and being able to like fill certain people in on things. With Glen, it was all a work. And it's like everything I said to him, like I said the most foul things in the world that you can say to a guy in a wheelchair.
You really did. You got some heat on him, and he loved every minute of it. I remember thinking to myself, wow, dude, you're going overboard. You're kind of a dick, right? And then he'd be like, no, Scott, don't tell him that. I love it. It's awesome. This is so much fun. I'm like, what?
Every time I see him come from his snack bar with his wheelchair, he'd be like, hey, Meals on Wheels. He making a delivery?
He loved that shit, dude. He was a wild one, man.
Glen roller skates. The one time he had a match against IB Green, and Rob's yelling at him, get in the ring.
I thought it was really cool that Keith let him be a manager in ECPW and let him manage Joe Post, his brother. One of the best moments in my wrestling life. You know, I mean, I think about like everywhere I've been, from like 3DW, ECPW, like Evolve, PPW, all this other stuff, right? And I think one of the top 5 things in wrestling that I've seen was when Joe Post in Cortland, his hometown of Cortland, finally captured the ECPW television championship from Mr. Saturday Night.
Oh God.
And it was a moment because most of the people in Cortland were friends of either Glen or Joe. And it was Glen Post Appreciation Night or something that night.
Right.
And Mr. Saturday Night.
Glen Post, This Is Your Life.
Yeah, This Is Your Life 1, I think it was. And Mr. Saturday Night, to his credit, did business and lost and let that moment happen. And it was cool. And it was all because Keith Zimmer let Glen Post manage. And I thought that's something that
cruising cripple.
Yeah, that was cool. I like that. That was a really good thing for him to do.
And it sucks. We never had an opportunity to interact with each other as managers.
I know. That would have been
cool
wild.
if you like rolled over my foot or something.
Who the fuck knows what you would have done? I've already seen what your mouth does. Get you in trouble, verbally assaulting this man. I could only imagine what would happen if the physicality got
one time
into
he
it.
was made a post on Facebook and whatnot about bullies harassing him and whatnot. I'm like, you need to stand up for yourself.
The one guy who bullies him more. I love it, dude. I fucking love it. So what you said you were in like this creative funk. You got this creative funk going on, and
because I felt like the last project failed because I feel like I'm being blamed for its failure, even though I feel it has potential. And I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to point blame. I just know that I feel like I got more done working by myself over a 10-year period than I did working with other people. Not that I had a problem working with other people. I just feel that what Razor Blade Candy Dish was supposed to be didn't become that.
Right.
And
not because of people.
Well, from what I was understanding in the beginning, it was going to be the video version of the original Geeks podcast. You don't need to change. You're going to just do what you do and be you.
Right.
But now it's going to be video with a multi-camera setup. And I feel it became, okay, instead of doing a show, it's going to become, I got 4 people coming up that you're going to do interviews with that are all about projects that I have going on that have nothing to do with you, but you're going to use your platform to interview them. Right. So I feel like half the time I was meeting people for the first time.
Right.
So at the same time, I was being myself while making a first impression. So I feel with some people, I didn't make a good first impression because they didn't know who the hell I was.
That's fair. I remember doing that show. You called me over to this house. You're like, come over to this house. We're interviewing people. We've got like a couple other people with you. I said, okay. I go over to this house and it's like a setup, dude. Like downstairs, it's a setup. There's like a green room. There's like in the other room, you go in, you're recording, and there's all this other equipment.
Yeah, and it was like Wayne's World. There was a set. There was a futon. There was chairs and mic set up.
I remember. It's gonna be. It's weird.
It was great.
It's weird what sticks with you.
That's why I will flat out say with that experience, I'm forever grateful for Brian and Tyler and everything they put into that show. It's just outside factors that got involved that kind of killed my passion for it. And while I feel I was seeing problems arise that could affect the show, I feel I was being looked at as the problem for addressing the problems.
Right.
That I was spying with my little eye. And it's like,
don't rock the boat, Ian.
Don't want to do this. So.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's basically where the plug got pulled. And honestly, I've been spending like 4 years wondering if half those people think I'm a piece of shit because of that experience, even though.
But fuck them. Who cares?
You're right. You're right. But at the same time.
not fuck them. I have a good relationship with these people, but I'm saying fuck anybody's opinion, of what you have to do. I think that's what made you so successful. I think you didn't care. I think before you didn't give a shit. But
at the same time too, when it comes to like being me, like, I'm not saying sometimes people wear masks to hide the pain, but yeah, sometimes people wear masks to hide the pain.
Sure.
And I feel like me being Ian Daddybones, especially when I was like at my most offensive, that was me trying to keep my kid alive. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like living in a modern world where everybody has no problem posting that message about anti-suicide and it's never the answer. And you can always call on me, but sometimes those people even don't answer their phones.
Right.
And so and I'm not saying I was suicidal, but not by any means, but I was busy with my kids. You know what I mean? And at the same time, the last time I saw you, I only had 3. Now I got 4 of those motherfuckers. And it's like now, like everything started because I was trying to be responsible to take care of Julia.
Right.
And now Julia just turned 20. She made me a grandfather 2 years ago. So now I got a little girl that calls me Pops.
Yeah.
So
Ian Daddy Pops.
Yeah. So it's like that's been a whole evolution and whatnot. So
I feel like a new chapter in your life.
Yeah, but I don't know what I want to do. I mean, the only thing I've been doing lately is just remote learning my kids. I've been working out for the past 2 months.
Yeah.
Like I'm on week 10 right now. And of like, cause like I turned like I got this like.
What are you doing? Like what kind of workout?
Right now I'm just doing like bench presses, arm curls. I'm doing whatever butterfly curls where I'm laying on my back.
Sure.
I'm doing overhead lifts. But it's like I don't have a lot to work with. I mean, you saw what I'm working with when I got here. I only got like 60 pounds max, including the bar. So it's like I'll do like break it up in sets. Like I'll do like in the beginning, I was doing like 20 bench presses, 20 curls, 20 overhead lifts, 20 butterflies, get a drink of water, go back 25 more. So basically I'm at a point now to where I'm doing like 5 sets of 30 and then like overhead lifts 25 each time.
Are you finding like that's helping you mentally? Are you finding that maybe you could break out of this creative slump by getting yourself into shape and getting the
whole thing with getting
healthy?
myself into shape came about is because I'm trying to motivate my kid not to be a lazy slump that's playing Apex.
Sure.
So it's like the kids started taking boxing lessons last summer, and they were taking boxing lessons in like a garage with the door open. So it's one thing with like July and August and September and early October, but by the end of October, early November, it starts getting cold out, and it's like, okay,
that's when you get them on that boxing game you keep talking to me about.
Oh, I'll get to that in a second. But but like you see, like for Christmas, I invested in the mats.
Yeah.
So I got the basement all covered in mats, and I got the weight bench, and Sean Carr, Jason was nice enough to come over and bring me a lifting bar for the weight bench.
Thanks, Jason.
And that's great because that's compatible with the 60 pounds that I got on the 2 dumbbells. So I'm able to do my benches and whatnot. So basically I got that just to like, I figured, well, the only way I'm going to motivate Owen to do it is if I use it with him.
Sure.
So basically I've been using it more than anybody at the moment, but at the same time, like, I mean, that's not a terrible thing. I mean, looking on the camera, it's not much of a change, but honestly, for the first time in my life, I have somewhat of a bicep.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not exactly 24-inch python. It's more like a 16-inch garter snake, but you know, it's all good.
Hey man, it's awesome.
I've been having a blast with it, but honestly, I've just been being dad because like the whole thing with Julia, like that crippled me, man. Like you're talking about the temp job, going every day thinking I could be fired. It's another thing, raising a kid thinking every day she could kill herself.
Yeah.
I don't wish that shit on nobody.
No,
that's the reality. It's like, and then that's the thing. If anybody watching this now that ever got offended by anything I had to say at that point in time, I was dealing with shit that people couldn't even imagine. Shit you wouldn't even wish on your worst enemy. Yeah. You know, it's like
people are quick to judge, I think.
And that's the worst part is like I even had close friends, and it's like, no, nothing about anybody in particular, but it's like somebody would be like, dude, how could you post something like that? You got kids. Dude, I'm dealing with a teenager that's self-harming herself. You have a 5-year-old. We are not the same.
We are not the same.
Okay, go watch fucking Coco Melon or something. I'm cleaning up blood right now. Right. And it was really tough. Like honestly, like I got in trouble with Xcite Wrestling over a goddamn meme. A meme. Yeah. And that's the thing that pisses me off. We live in a world where that's all people do on the internet is share memes and shit. It's like everybody wants to laugh at the dirty jokes until you meet somebody that writes the dirty joke. And it's like, how dare you? Yeah. And it's just
interesting dynamic, right?
Yeah. And the thing was, I made an Ariana Grande meme. Remember when her concert was in England and there was an explosion?
Oh, yeah.
I made a meme that says with it that where she's like winning a Grammy and she's like, oh my God, I won. And it said, and then the meme says when you go to that time you go to England and your career blows up.
Yikes.
But at the same
it's
time,
funny,
but at the same time too,
it's not.
Yeah, but I mean that was 2017. Ian.
Right.
Did he learn his lesson? Absolutely not. You know why? Because if you go to storefrontier.com/Ian Daddybones, I have an online store. I'm sorry for the cheap plug, and I did not clear this with you in the beginning. But you can buy amazing T-shirts like this, like Rap Group Simulator. It's a video game for your Super Nintendo Lane Station 64.
Rap Group Simulator.
Oh God, read it. It says, create your own shitty beats, write lame rhymes, get tons of fans who actually have you develop a big ego and problem, try to support a family, balance a real job, get shot at by haters, and be better at being fake than most people are at being real.
That should be the description for this podcast.
But no, the worst thing I did, the day Screech died, I made a T-shirt. And
screeching halt, right?
Yeah, sometimes life comes to a screeching halt. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not just going to post that on the internet. I'm going to put that on a shirt. As a matter of fact, I'm going to buy one so I can wear it to the waist. So when I see new Jason, he could be like, hey, where did you get that shirt?
And then the circle goes all over again, doesn't it? Do you have any
like, hey kid, do you want to be a wrestler?
do you have any aspirations to be back into wrestling? I mean, I know you say you're over the indie wrestling scene. Does that mean that you're over the drama? Or
I'm just over the drama. I'm just over the drama.
Are you looking to get back in? Is there ever a time where Ian Daddybones might be in a ring again?
I would love to. I mean, honestly, don't get me wrong. Part of the reason I'm not involved with Xcite right now, because I want to make it perfectly clear, like there were rumors going around that I got fired from Xcite Wrestling. No, I never got fired from Xcite Wrestling. As a matter of fact, I tried to tearfully resign. I like tell him like had like having a little talk with Moose and like getting emotional about it. Kind of turned waterworks started shedding and being like, dude, I want to do this, but I can't. I don't want to. You know how it's wrestling where it's like you learn about the importance of ring crew, but God forbid you don't show up to ring crew that once and you never fucking hear the end of it.
Oh God, yeah.
So it's like that mentality stuck with me. Like ring crew meant a lot to me.
Sure.
So it's like when I can't make shows because I'm trying to keep my kid alive. Sorry, you know what I mean? I feel like, you know, maybe I need to step back and focus on being a husband, being dad.
What'd Moose say? How do you take that?
He respected it.
Yeah.
And he basically wouldn't let me leave. He's like, you'll always have a home here. And, you know, and that meant a lot to me. And honestly, I mean, looking back on it, what happened that night isn't exactly the greatest thing to talk about, but at the time it was over as fuck. And I was quite honored to do it. But Moose and I had that conversation at like 2 p.m.
Right.
By like 8 o'clock at night, I'm getting thrown across the ring by Joey Ryan's penis. You know what I mean? So at the one time, taking Joey Ryan's dick flip was one of the coolest things that somebody could have the honor of doing. And but now it's like, oh God, I got to wash you again.
Yeah.
It's got that Joey Ryan funk on it.
Yeah, that Joey Ryan funk's not too appreciated these days in pro wrestling.
But that's the thing. It's like, I mean, I could honestly say like everything I did with being Ian Daddybones started when Julie was like 1.5 years, and now she's 20, and you know, and I talk about how it was when she was like 14 and whatnot, and it's like my son is going to be 14 at the end of the month, so my son's about to be the same age that Julia was when the problem started,
right? But
Owen is light years away from where she was at that point. Like, I don't really have to worry about him. Like, He sticks to himself. He's quiet. He plays video games. That's what he likes doing. And, you know, he's a completely different kid than she was at that age.
He gives dad a little less stress so that he can come up with different ideas to get back on a microphone, right?
Yeah. And at the same time,
you got to get back on a microphone.
I would love to. And honestly, I kind of been enjoying this setup. And I've been looking at the live time. So I know we've been going for quite a bit. So we should probably wrap this up. But I wouldn't mind doing this again because I didn't even know what this StreamYard was.
Oh, my God.
Until you sent me a link the other day. And now it's like I can't even get through a YouTube ad without seeing something for it.
Oh, that damn duck! The damn duck shows up. It's something that my buddy and partner Alex Watt. I don't think you know Alex.
You know what?
Do you know Alex?
You know what? I will say this, and if he ever watches this, he pop in my people I may know on Facebook all the time. I see him at PPW shows like whenever I used to go down.
Yeah.
Because I even remember him being a fan watching it in the crowd. and now he's like part of it. So
yeah, he's a co-owner. He was a co-owner of PPW. Now he owns High Tension, and he's doing a thing on IWTV called Frog Sport.
Nice.
And I know you don't get super into the wrestling right now, so we'll let you know. But
I mean, I totally do. I mean, I've been like paying attention to like stuff that's going on, and like still watching it on TV, and like, you know, I'm less of the WWE product.
Oh,
I'm more of the I'm more of the AEW product right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know it's been a while since we had our three ropes hats on, but yeah, if the discussions we could have had the past year about AEW, and it's weird and interesting because I was actually saying this to myself before you came over today, because I was watching something on What Culture on YouTube.
Yep.
And they were talking about Daniel Bryan's contract being officially
It ended,
expired.
I think, today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just popped into my head. Like, I remember you and I planning our send-off episode for him on a Tuesday morning, the night after Monday Night Raw, that he retired. The infamous night that Titus grabbed Vince by his arm and got suspended.
That was the end of the world, wasn't it? That was the end of the world.
Yeah, then Titus got rid of that. He came on and do big things like falling face first underneath the ring on his way to a Royal Rumble.
Oh God, he's had a career. All right, well, hey man, I really appreciate the time. You need to get back on a microphone. There's some genius in that fucking head of yours. I know there is, and I think it's about to be untapped. You just have to get back on the fucking microphone because there was genius before. And there's still genius up there.
Well, there's genius in the chair across from me, so maybe we need to start hanging out more. And
we should.
Right.
We totally should. And at very least, we'll definitely do one of these things again. Surely, because we have a lot more to cover. But we're out of time. So fuck time.
Yeah, especially having a camera. Next time I could have you try out VR.
Yeah, isn't this crazy? Oh Jesus. All right, well, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. And do you have anything to plug right now?
Unfortunately, no, because last year
you're plugging the good life, right?
No, last year, my pastime with this old coronavirus was calling out Proud Boys. So I spent so much time in Facebook jail last year that I actually got permanently Twitter banned.
You're like, you and Donald Trump have some exclusive company.
Yeah, sadly we have shit.
I haven't seen the verdict today. He might be getting on social.
He's not.
They said no.
Nope, they said it still stands. Yeah.
Ian Daddybones. Thanks a lot, buddy.
I'll see you next time.